Hello, welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Ben, and this is another edition of Fresh Red Kills. So Fresh Red Kills are the videos where I talk about the books that I've recently finished reading. As always, recent is fairly relative. I read these books in September. It's been a long time since I've made one of these Fresh Red Kills type videos. However, I'm filming this on November 2nd. You can tell by the t-shirt, though, that I'm not really willing to let Halloween go just yet. And I think that these books still actually fit with the spooky season, even if I read them at least a month and a half ago. So I'll be talking about Vexed with Devils and The Devil Made Me Do It, both about, largely about witchcraft. If you're new to my channel, of course, this is a booktube channel. My videos are unscripted. They are I don't even call these things reviews. They are just my thoughts. That's about it. I just like to have some kind of visual record on video of some of the things that I was thinking when I was reading. And if you've read any of these, I'd love to hear your comments, and you can chime in on the conversation. So I read these actually over a single weekend. I had gotten sick. I'm a teacher, and when I got home on a Friday, within an hour, I started feeling sick. And my wife promptly quarantined me inside our bedroom, and I wasn't really allowed to wander the house. So I got very tired very quickly of staring at my phone. So I got a lot of quality reading in. I had already started this, but I finished this on, by that Saturday and Sunday. I basically went through this and just sat there for hours reading. So these were all one weekend. So I read first Vexed with Devils, and then I read The Devil Made Me Do It, although I kind of wish I read them in the opposite order, and I'll kind of explain why as I go through. So the first one, Erika Gasser, Vexed with Devils, Manhood and Witchcraft in Old and New England. And by the way, I read both of these as part of Historathon 2025. Historathon is a year-long event, where we read, discuss, and celebrate nonfiction history, and we divide the year up into quarters, each quarter looking at a different time period. So this was all during quarter 3, which looked at the years 1500 to 1820. So that's where this all came in. And this one was published by New York University Press. And I do love that cover design. Looks great. This is very much an academic book. This is not really intended for a general readership. Essentially, as the title says, it is looking at the ways that sort of gender roles, accepted gender norms, gender expectations, especially when it revolves around men, how they played into not just sort of witchcraft accusations, and a lot of it has to do with witchcraft as it's seen through things like demonic possession. But it also looks at the ways that the debates between the witch hunters and the critics, how gender expectations about manhood kind of played out there as well. And she also splits the book. In the first half, you're really looking at England, and the second half you're looking at New England. So she's trying to show how these manhood expectations and understandings went across the Atlantic, because of course it was a shared culture. And I say this is really an academic book because if you're not already familiar with some of these cases, you're going to have to be, as she's explaining the manhood stuff, trying to piece it together exactly what happened in these different cases. She doesn't really lay it out for you. And of course, because her thesis is about, manhood, you're going to constantly be coming across these same things. It's going to feel a little bit repetitive, but of course, she's trying to prove a point. She's not trying to entertain a wider audience. So I found this to be, interesting. It wasn't as engaging as kind of hoped it would be. I mean, look at that cover. It looks pretty awesome. But it did introduce me to an aspect of the witchcraft, era that I just didn't have a lot of knowledge about, and that is the debates. Those people who were criticizing, often through open letters, back and forth against these witch hunters. So we have a case, I think it was late 16th century in England, and then we have late 17th century after Salem. And I found that to be very, very fascinating. Of course, she's kind of talking about the way that, manhood is depicted. If a man is not assertive enough, he's unmanly. If he's too assertive, like if he hits his wife too often or something like that, he's also unmanly. So they're kind of emasculating each other through these debates. But just this whole idea of these critics going against them, and they're both trying to, basically clap back at each other. I thought that stuff was actually really interesting. But this book kind of, if I had read this first, it would have explained some of the cases that were discussed here, and I would have had just an easier time figuring out what exactly was going on. Not that I didn't get confused by this book, but it's, again, she's talking about a certain case, and she doesn't just lay out exactly what happened. So you have to kind of like piece together as she goes through all of her stuff exactly what occurred. So yeah, this was interesting, but maybe not quite as engaging as I had hoped it was going to be. This was a lot of fun. This is intended for a general readership. So this is The Devil Made Me Do It, Crime and Punishment in Early New England by Juliet, Haines, Mofford. And this is published by Globe Pequot Press over in Guilford, Connecticut. So, almost local to me. I'm on the other side of Connecticut. And this looks at especially, this is 17th century, so 1600s. What was on the law books, what were the social mores, and if you broke those sorts of things, what could happen to you. And this was a lot of fun. We have things like chapters like sexual deviants and female felons. Let's see, first colonial crime wave, crimes against religion, governing the community the Puritan way. She gives a lot of context. She does have a long section on witches as well. And we have things like the pirates coming through. And it was really eye-opening in a lot of ways. Of course, the witchcraft stuff I thought was really interesting. She definitely uses a lot of primary sources. She is, quoting from the court cases as often as she can. So that was really nice. It was nice to see all the primary sources to go through. But certain things that you just wouldn't expect, like I forget, it was somewhere actually in southern Connecticut. We essentially had a beloved figure in the community that was essentially openly gay. And it was tolerated by the community for a very, very long time. He did eventually get punished, I think, because new leadership kind of came through. But you can see this kind of, you can't just paint all these people in black and white necessarily. There is gray areas all throughout. But yeah, I actually had a really good time with this. Like I said, it was a very quick read. I read this on a Sunday while, I was getting over a fever and just sitting in bed. But a lot of fun. So these are two that I read for Q3 of Historathon 2025, both dealing with witchcraft, both appropriate for the lingering spooky season. I try to make Halloween last really until Krampusnacht, so early December. I try and stretch it as long as I can in some way or another. My wife is already trying to put away Halloween decorations, and I'm fighting it. But here we go. So I read Vexed with Devils and The Devil Made Me Do It. If you read either of these, love your thoughts. And as always, thank you, BookTube.